Hello, welcome to Ikate's Crossing. As we continue reading with Celestine Prophecy by James Redfield, we're doing The Secret of Shambhala, and we're up to chapter 3. Oops, I just knocked that. Let me put that back on there. Okay, so I'm up to chapter 3. So let's continue. Firstly, let's do a little bit of a reading. Let's have a look at today's message that we're going to reflect on as we move through this chapter. Let's take a nice deep breath. As we continue reading The Secret of Shambhala, what message do the cards have for us? What message do the deities have for us during this time as we continue reading this book? Let's have a look. What message do the cards have for us? Okay, the first card we're looking at is the Knight of Wands. Knight of Wands tells us that it's about getting more information to be able to move forward on our journey. I do feel like it's about getting more information. There are some things that we need to complete on this journey. There's different stages that we need to complete. And I feel like it's very much about changing our perception of things as well. It does feel like we're changing our perceptions. Our perceptions are shifting as we move into unknown waters, if you like, during this journey. Okay, the next thing I want to look at here is I actually want to grab the sacred geometry cards as well. We're just going to leave a message from this as well. Let's just get a little bit more into that. So what card from the sacred geometry are we going to focus on today? And the card we're focusing on is about compassionate Pele, with Pele. So I do feel like it's that sense of being very gentle with ourselves and others around us. Be very giving. There is a sense of unconditional giving as well, which is quite important. So let's just take a minute to have a look at the guidebook with the sacred geometry cards for the visionary path. It's card number 41. So let's have a look at this message together for a second before we read the chapter. Just want you to take a nice deep breath. And it's talking about compassion and emotional maturity. So there is a growth going on with your emotions as you move through this process. I think as you sort of allow yourself the sense of moving into the unknown waters by finishing the tasks that need doing, by making sure that you've got that information you need before you move forward in a sort of intense, there is this intensity as you swiftly move ahead here. Pele is the passionate volcano goddess of Hawaii. Traditionally, she is depicted as powerful, yet selfish, contrary, even vengeful. This card's alternative depiction comes from shared visions relating to her passionate or compassionate side. She is, as we are, maturing and becoming more loving and compassionate. Compassion is not passive. It is actively opening the heart through the awareness of the interdependence of all things, including other creatures, natures in the inanimate world. So it really is about allowing ourselves to receive what's going on around us, but also to radiate that love and compassion coming from the core within ourselves, which is interesting. So at our core essence, we exist as pure, unconditional love, realizing empathy and concern for others. We sometimes forget this essence, or in our emotional immaturity act as if we have. Compassion is the embodiment of emotional maturity and a clue to better understanding our humanness. Compassionate Pele now becomes an example and guide for those who are intentionally remembering their soul essence. There's a lot about remembering our past, through the Celestine Prophecy. There's a lot about remembering our soul message, our soul essence. Hearts created from sacred geometry's golden spiral inform your movement towards emotional maturity. As we mature together, we will realize hope for the human race. Let this card be a reminder to walk the path of peace and compassion in every way, every day. Know that your every thought, word, and action has an effect on the whole and touches the spirit of every other being. Exactly what we've been reading with The Secret of Shambhala. How we are affecting others and how others can affect us in an empathetic way. And that's all to do with the energy, the essence of our own core. An action has an effect on the whole and touches the spirit of every other being. Walk in awareness with compassion for all creation. I love the way that this message really connects to the energy of the Secret of Shambhala. That is so cool. So really there, when we're talking about being gentle with ourselves, that's sort of, I think that is that commitment to finishing each stage before we move on to the next one. That's what we've had to do with the insights. Move through each insight and understand each insight before we move on to the next one, allowing us that passion, that creativity to move forward. And I think that's really important, that we get the information we need. We don't rush ahead, and I think we can sometimes move too quickly ahead. It's sort of a reminder when you sort of connect with this message to sort of slow down a little bit. Doesn't have to, sometimes moving quickly comes from slowing down, being able to move through that process that we want, that we need to during this with the Celestine prophecy, the insights. I think it's important to sort of slow down a little bit, and we will move quickly through the process. If we try and rush it, then it slows down our process, if you know what I mean. So that's really important here. And so you end up moving into the unknown world when you just surrender and allow yourself to move through the process, not in such a rush, but you do start. But when you slow down and allow yourself to move through the process, you start to move through the process quite quickly. But if you try and rush the process, then it hinders you. And that's where the finishing of each task is so important. What a great message in regards to this book. So let us continue. Number 3, cultivating energy. We walked outside and I noticed a brown hardtop Jeep, perhaps 10 years old, sitting beside the road. As we walked closer, I could tell it was filled with ice chests, boxes of dried food, sleeping bags, and heavier jackets. Several external gas tanks were strapped to the rear. Where did all this stuff come from? I asked. He winked at me. We have been preparing for this journey for a long time. From Lama Rigden's monastery, Yin headed north for a few miles, then turned the Jeep from the wide gravel road onto a narrow tract, barely wider than a footpath. We continued driving for several miles without saying anything. The truth was, I didn't know what to say. I had agreed to go on this journey purely because of the Lama's words and because of what Will had done for me in the past. But now the angst over the decision was beginning to set in. I tried to shake off the fear and to retrace in my mind all that Lama Rigden had told me. What did he mean by mastering the force of my expectations? I looked over at Yin. He was staring intently at the road. Where are we heading? I asked. Without looking at me, he said, This is the shortcut to the Friendship Highway. We must go southwest to Tingra, near Mount Everest. The drive will take most of the day. We'll also be going up an altitude. Is that area safe? Yin glanced at me. We will be very careful. We're going to find Mr. Han. Who is he? He knows the most about the first extension of prayer energy. You must learn. He is from Thailand and he is very educated. I shook my head and looked away. I'm not sure I understand these extensions. What are they? You know that you have an energy field, correct? A prayer field flowing out from you all the time. Yes. And you know that this field has the effect on the world on what happens. You know it can be either small and weak or extensive and strong. Yeah, I suppose. Well, there are precise ways to extend and expand your field so that you can become more creative and powerful. The legends say that eventually all humans will know how to do this, but you must do it now if you expect to get to Shambhala and find will. Can you always perform these extensions? I asked. Yin frowned. I did not say that. I just looked at him. This was great. How was I supposed to learn to do this if even Yin had trouble? For hours we drove without talking, eating nuts and vegetables as we rode along, stopping only once at a truck stop for gas. Well after dark we passed through Tingri. We must be very careful here, Yin said. We are near the Rongfu Monastery and the Everest Base Camp, and there will be Chinese soldiers observing the tourists and climbers. But we will also be able to see incredible views of the north face of Everest. Yin made several turns until he came to an area of old wooden buildings. Beyond them was a simple mud brick house. The yard around Han's dwelling was immaculate, with carefully planted beds and rock gardens. As we drove up, a large man in a colourful hand-broidered robe walked out on the stoop. He appeared to be in his 60s, but he moved like a person much younger. His head was completely shaved. Yin waved as the man strained to see who it was. When he recognized Yin, he burst into a smile and walked towards us as we got out of the jeep. The two men spoke for a moment in Tibetan. Then Yin pointed to me and said, "This is my American friend." I told Han my name, and he bowed slightly and grasped my hand. "Welcome," he said. "Please come in." As Han walked back to the house, Yin reached inside the jeep and grabbed his pack. "Bring your satchel," he said. The house inside was modest, but filled with colourful Tibetan paintings and rugs. We went into a small sitting area, and from where I was I could see most of the other rooms. To the left was a small kitchen and a bedroom, and to the right was another room that had the look of a treatment area of some kind. In the centre of the room was a massage or examination table, and lining one wall were cabinets and a small sink. Yin said something else to Han in Tibetan, and I heard him repeat my name. Han leaned forward with a new alertness. He glanced over at me and took a large breath. "You are very fearful," Han said, looking at me over closely. "No kidding," I replied. Han chuckled at my sarcasm. "We must do something about that if you're going to complete your journey." He walked around me, surveying my body. "Those in Shambhala," he began, "live differently from most other humans. They always have. In fact, through the millennia, there's always been a great gulf between the energy levels of most people and those in Shambhala. Yet in recent times, as all humans have evolved and increased their consciousness, this distance has closed, but it's still very far apart." As Han was talking, I glanced at Yin. He seemed to be as nervous as I was. Han picked up on it too. "Yin is as fearful as you are," he said, "but he knows that this fear can be handled. I don't think you realise that yet. You must begin to act and think as those in Shambhala do. You must first cultivate and then stabilise your energy." Han stopped and concentrated on looking at my body again, then smiled. "You have had many experiences," he said. "You should be stronger." "Maybe I don't understand energy well enough," I replied. "Oh no, you understand," Han smiled broadly. "You just don't want to change the way you live. You want to get excited about the ideas and then live unconsciously, more or less the way you've always done." This conversation was not going the way I wanted, and my fear was being replaced by a mild irritation. As I stood there, Han walked around me several more times, still gazing intently up and down my body. "What are you looking at?" I asked. "When I am assessing someone's energy level, I first look at posture," Han said matter-of-factly. "Yours is not too bad at this point, but you have to work on it, didn't you?" His question was very perceptive. As a youth, I grew very quickly one year, and as a result slumped terribly. My back was always tired and ached, and it only improved when I began to practice a few basic yoga positions every morning. "The energy still doesn't flow up your body very well," Han added. "You can tell that by looking at me," I responded. and by feeling you. The amount and strength of your energy feels like the degree of presence you have in that room. Surely you must have experienced someone who came into the room and had presence or charisma. Sure, of course. I thought about the man at the hotel pool in Kathmandu. The more energy one has, the more others feel that person's presence. Often this is energy that winds up being displayed through the ego, and so feels strong at first, then dissipates very rapidly. But with others, this is genuine and constant energy that remains reliable. I nodded. One thing in your favour is that you are open, Han continued. You have experienced a mystical opening, a sudden inflow of divine energy, some time in the past, have you not? Yes, I said, remembering my experience on the mountain top in Peru. Even now it remained vivid in my memory. I'd been at the end of my rope, certain I was about to be killed by Peruvian soldiers, when all of a sudden I was imbued with an unusual calm, euphoria, and lightness. It was the first time I'd experienced what the mystics of various religions had called a transformative state. How did the energy fill you? Han asked. How did it happen exactly? It was a rush of peacefulness and all my fear went away. How did it move? That was a question I'd never thought about, but I quickly began to remember. It seemed to come up my spine and out through the top of my head, lifting my body upward. I felt as if I was floating, as though there was a string pulling me upward from the top of my head. Han nodded approvingly, then caught my eye. And how long did it last? Not long, I replied, but I have learnt how to breathe in the beauty around me in order to rekindle the feeling. What is missing in your practice? Said Han. Is breathing in the energy and then consciously maintaining it at a higher level. This is the first extension that you must make. You must keep your energy flowing in more fully. This must be done in a precise manner, taking care that your other actions do not erode your energy field once you've built it up. He paused for a moment. Do you understand? The rest of your life must support your higher energy. You must be congruent. He glanced at me mischievously. You must live wisely. Let's eat. He disappeared into the kitchen and returned with a platter of vegetables, accompanied by a sauce of some kind. He ushered both Yin and me over to the table and served the vegetables in 3 bowls. It soon became clear that the food was all part of the information Han was imparting. As we ate, he continued, maintaining higher energy within oneself is impossible if one consumes dead matter as food. I looked away, turning off. If this was going to be a lecture on diet, I would just as soon skip it. My attitude seemed to infuriate Han. Are you crazy? He almost shouted. Your very survival may depend on this information, and you won't put yourself out a little bit to learn this? What do you think? That you can live any way you want and still do important things? He became quiet and glanced sideways at me. I realized that the anger was genuine, but also a part of his act. I got the impression that he was giving information to me on more than one level. As I looked back at him, I couldn't help smiling. Han was eminently likable. He patted my shoulder and smiled back at me. Most people, he continued, are full of energy and enthusiasm in their youth, but then during middle age they lapse into a slow downhill slide that they pretend not to notice. After all, their friends are slowing down and their kids are active, so they spend more and more time sitting around eating the foods that taste good. Before long, they begin to have a nagging complaints and chronic problems such as digestive difficulties or skin irritations that they write off as just age, and then one day they get a serious illness that won't go away. Usually they go to a doctor who does not stress prevention, and they begin to take drugs, and sometimes the problem is helped and sometimes it isn't. And then as the years fly by, they get some disease that progressively gets worse, and they realize they are dying. Their only solace is they think that what is happening occurs to everyone, that it is inevitable. This terrible thing is that this collapse of energy happens to some extent even to people who are otherwise intend to be spiritual. He leaned over towards me and feigned looking around the room to see if someone was listening. This includes some of our most respected lamas. I wanted to laugh, but I dared not. If we seek higher energy and at the same time consume foods that rob us of this energy, Han continued, we get nowhere. We must access all the energies we routinely allow into our own energy fields, especially foods, and avoid all but the best if our fields are to stay strong. He leaned closer to me again. This is very difficult for most people because we are all addicted to the foods we currently eat, and most are horribly poisonous. I looked away. I know there is much conflicting information out there about food, he went on, but the truth is out there too. Each of us must do the research, make ourselves see the larger picture. We are spiritual beings who come into this world to raise our energy. Yet much of what we find here is designed purely for sensual pleasure and distraction. Much of it saps our energy and pulls us towards physical disintegration. If we really believe we are energetic beings, we must follow a narrow path through these temptations. If you look all the way back at evolution, you see that from the beginning, we had to experiment with foods purely by trial and error, just to figure out which foods were good for us and which would kill us. Eat this plant, survive. Eat that one over there, die. At this point in history, we figured out what kills us, but we're now only realizing which foods add to our ultimate longevity and keep our energy high, and which ones ultimately wear us down. He paused for a moment, as if determining whether I was understanding. In Shambhala, they see this larger picture, he continued. They know who we are as human beings. We look like we are material, stuff, flesh and blood, but we are atoms, pure energy. Your science has proved this fact. When we look deeper into atoms, we first see particles, and then at deeper levels, the particles themselves disappear into patterns of pure energy, vibrating at a certain level. And if we look at the way we eat from this perspective, we see that what we put in our bodies as food affects our vibrational state. Certain foods increase our energy and vibration, and others diminish it. The truth is as simple as that. All disease is the result of a drop in vibrational energy. And when our energy drops to a certain point, there are natural forces in the world that are designed to disincorporate our bodies. He looked at me as though he had said something very profound. Do you mean physically disincorporate? I asked. Yes. Look again at the larger picture. When anything dies, a dog hit by a car, or a person after a long illness, the cells of the body immediately lose their vibration and become very acid in chemistry. That acid state is the signal to the microbes of the world, the viruses, bacteria and fungi, that it is time to decompose this dead tissue. This is their job in the physical universe, to return a body back to the earth. I said earlier, he went on, that when our bodies drop in energy because of the kinds of foods we are eating, it makes us susceptible to disease. Here's how that works. When we eat foods, they are metabolized and leave a waste or ash in our bodies. This ash is either acidic in nature or alkaline, depending on the food. If it is alkaline, then it can be quickly extracted from our bodies with little energy. However, if these waste products are acid, they are hard for the blood and lymph system to eliminate, and they are stored in our organs and tissues as solids, low vibrational crystalline forms that create blocks or disruptions in the vibratory levels of our cells. The more such acid byproducts are stored, the more generally acid these tissues become. And guess what? He looked at me dramatically again. A microbe of one type or another appears and senses all this acid and says, oh, this body is ready to be decomposed. Do you get that? When any organism dies, its body quickly changes to a highly acid environment and is consumed by microbes very quickly. If we begin to reassemble this very acid or death state, then we begin to come under attack from microbes. All human diseases are the result of such an attack. What Han was saying made perfect sense. A long time ago, I had run across some information about body pH on the internet. Moreover, I seem to know it intuitively. You're telling me that what we eat directly sets us up for disease, I asked. Yes. The wrong foods can lower our vibrational level to the point that the forces of nature begin to return our bodies to the earth. What about diseases that aren't caused by microbes? All disease comes about through microbial action. Your own research in the West is showing that. Various microbes have been found to be associated with the arterial lesions of heart disease, as well as the production of tumours and cancer. But remember, the microbes are just doing what they do. Diets that create the acidic environment are the true cause. He paused and then said, grasp this fully. We humans are either in an alkaline high energy state or we are in an acid state, which signals the microbes living within us, or that come by that we are ready to decompose. Disease is literally a rotting of some part of our own bodies. Through the microbes around us have been given the signal that we are already dead. He looked at me mischievously again. Sorry to be so blunt, he said, but we don't have much time. The food we eat determines almost entirely which of these two conditions we are in. Generally, foods that leave acid wastes in our body are heavily overcooked, overprocessed, and sweet, such as meats, flours, pastries, alcohol, coffee, and the sweeter fruits. Alkaline foods are greener, fresher, and more alive, such as fresh vegetables and their juices, leafy greens, sprouts, and fruits like avocado, tomato, grapefruit, and lemons. It could not be more simple. We are spiritual beings in an energetic, spiritual world. Those of you in the West might have grown up thinking that cooked meat and processed foods are good for us, but we know now that they create an environment of slow disincorporation that takes its toll on us over time. All the debilitating illnesses that plague mankind, arteriosclerosis, stroke, arthritis, AIDS, and especially cancers, exist because we pollute our bodies, which signal the microbes instead that we are ready to break down, de-energize, and die. We always wondered why some people exposed to the same microbes don't get a particular disease. The difference is the inner body environment. The good news is, even if we have too much acidity in our bodies and begin to decompose, the situation can be reversed if we improve our nutrition and move to an alkaline, higher energy state. He was now waving both arms, his eyes wide, still twinkling. We are living in the dark ages when it comes to the principles of a vibrant, high-energy body. Human beings are supposed to live more than 150 years, but we eat in a way that immediately begins to destroy us. Everywhere we see people who are disincorporating before our eyes, but it doesn't have to be that way. He paused and took a breath. It's not that way in Shambhala. After another moment, Han began to walk around, looking me over one more time. So there you have it, he concluded. The legends say that humans will first learn the true nature of foods and what kinds to consume. Then the legends say that we can fully open up to the inner sources of energy that increase our vibration even more. He slid his chair back from the table and looked at me. You are handling the attitude very well here in Tibet, but I would like for you to rest. That would be nice, I said. I'm bushed. Yes, Yen agreed. We've had a big day. A long day. Make sure you expect a dream, Han added, leading me towards the bedroom. Expect a dream? Han turned. Yes, you're more powerful than you think. And I laughed. Okay, that's it for today. Don't forget to check the links down below. Check the links on my channel. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you know when the next video will be uploaded. And don't forget, if you're on Ko-Fi, you see the previews.